Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Welcome to V-Talks. I'm your host, Veronica Brockwell. Well, tonight is part 2 of our 3-part series, Raising Good Humans. And our topic tonight is teenagers. Now, most of you who are watching probably have a teenager, and you're pretty frustrated. Sometimes things are really hard when you're trying to be a parent and you're trying to raise a good human. I've had so many parents reach out to me because we did a lot of promotion about this series. And I'm just going to read a couple questions to you that I got from parents that weren't comfortable talking about this on social media because their children might be watching. But I'm just going to throw a couple of these out there. Here's a basic one. I feel like I have no control over my child. Another one is my child refuses to go to school. What do I do? How do I handle this? Here's another one. My child won't shower. My child will not, take care of their hygiene, and I'm very frustrated. And when I address it, they have a meltdown and they go to their room. Here's another big one. My child is always on the computer. I can imagine I'm even sometimes always on the computer. So anyway, I have my panel of experts that are here tonight from Seahorse Behavioral, and they deal with parents and teens all the time, and they can kind of maneuver you through and suggest things for you to make your life a whole lot easier. Please welcome to V-Talks. We have Hannah Chapman.
Hello.
And Brianne Lienkamp.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Doing well. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited that we're doing this 3-part parenting series. I myself am not a parent, so I'm really grateful that you're here. I know you guys deal with this on a daily basis. You've probably seen and heard it all. And I'm thankful that you're here.
Thank you.
So I think before we get started, I'd really like for you to share a little bit about yourselves. Hannah, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Hannah Chapman. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I work with Brianne. Brianne owns Seahorse Behavioral in Marion. We provide therapy and medication management to the community with populations of patients aging from kids all the way up to, people that are in their 60s, 70s, 80s. This just so happens to be one of my favorite groups of patients to work with. I love my teenagers that I have. And I also have a very big interest and focus on eating disorders and also substance use disorders. So I'm excited to talk about this tonight.
Thank you, Hannah. And Brianne?
Yeah, I'm Brianne Lienkamp. I'm an adult nurse practitioner and a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And as Hannah said, we have patients that we manage across the lifespan. This is a really great group to work with. Sometimes it's very hard because we have the teenager plus the parent and a lot of that interaction back and forth. But it really is such a rewarding group of adolescents, teenagers to work with, because we've seen really kids in really, really difficult positions that are in college now that have been able to really get through their depression, their substance use. And I'm really excited. We have our Marion office, and we are about to open a second location in Middleborough, really to focus on the substance abuse, because it is something we're going to talk about tonight, and it is really prevalent in this age group.
Yeah.
And congratulations on opening your new location. I think that's wonderful. But at the same time, there's such a need, and there aren't enough facilities, and we're going to talk about that more later. So, ladies, I don't know if you were able to hear some of the questions that I talked about earlier.
Yes.
There are several, and I know we're just the tip of the iceberg. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think really all these questions that were asked are what we see in practice. With this particular age group, there's a lot of depression, anxiety, as you said, those behavioral, ADHD components and mood disorders. This is an age where some adolescents, teenagers start to develop some of these mood disorders like bipolar, and it can be challenging because the hormones, the potential that this is maybe more than just a depression, mood swings, anger, maybe they're hitting things, punching things, hitting their parents. That's really hard. A teenage boy at 15 might be bigger than his parents are, or a grandparent who's raising them, or a guardian, and that can get really scary. So I think these are really good questions that I hope we can address, and really give some guidance for maybe some of the parents dealing with this.
And Hannah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely something that we're seeing all the time. I think with a lot of those questions, what it really boils down to a lot of the time is getting to the root of the problem, right? Why is someone's child getting into physical altercations with their parents, their classmates, friends, whatever? Why don't they want to shower? What's the motivation behind that? 99.9% of the time there is a motivation behind it, whether maybe the child's undergone some sort of trauma that no one's aware of, or like Brianne said, maybe there's starting to be some sort of onset of some underlying like mental health conditions. So I think that that's kind of a lot of the times when I'm working with those kids is kind of just trying to tease out like why. I don't think kids want to act that way. It's no one wants to get stuck in the negative feedback loop of, I'm misbehaving. Now I'm the bad kid. I'm not a good person. I don't know how to behave. No one likes me. Nobody likes to feel like that. So getting to the bottom of why they're behaving that way, I think is probably one of the most important things to tease out first, because that will oftentimes solve the underlying, whatever behaviors you're seeing come out as a result of that.
All right, so let's take a scenario, and you tell me, how maybe a parent should address it initially. Okay, so you asked your child to get off the computer, kindly, nicely, and they just completely disregard what you're saying. What should a parent do at that point? I know.
Brianne, you want to go first?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
how big is the child?
Well, there's different factors. What is drawing them into really having to be so involved in whatever they're doing? So that's a big piece of it. We have teen dating sites now. We have all of the Instagram, the Facebook, and are they gaming? There's a teen dating website.
I need to act like I don't know that.
It's called Wiz. It's called Wiz.
What?
Wiz, and
does everybody know this?
I didn't know this until today.
Okay,
I have 2 teenagers, so this is like when they're all in the car with me, I ask these questions because I know there's things going on the surface. So I learned about Wiz being a friendship dating site.
Oh, it's a
for
friendship
the
site, like
teenagers.
pen pals were back in the day.
Yes, and they put their
Yeah.
pictures on there, and they get
Oh, wow.
messages put in,
That's
and
good.
I don't
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
It's
so
like
good.
it's like the AOL chat room of our time.
yes,
Remember those?
and
Oh,
yes, and
I hate them
so
myself.
what are they doing that they're really that
Yeah.
connected to it that they're not wanting to get off? And it goes to setting the boundaries of
okay.
you need to be able to disconnect. You have this much time to actually use the screen time. But there's homework, there's pressures with sports, there's especially in the tri-town. There's a lot of pressures that are going on, and it's just the boundaries, I think, are one of the biggest things that we can do as parents, as guardians, if we're put into that situation. We have to really say, no, this isn't the time to do that, and these are the consequences for it.
And so you recommend what then for consequences?
Yeah, you can have this
I
much
I
screen time.
really trying to
Parents shut off the entire electricity system.
I'm sorry, what?
They're like shutting it down
Oh,
to
okay.
try to get the kids
Yeah.
to go to bed on time, have a good regimen so they get up in the morning, taking the phone away potentially, taking it away out of the room so it's not accessible for the teen. And, this is a time where they're driving, they're getting their licenses, maybe they're using your car, you're paying for gas money. Those are all really good things that you can put in place as a boundary to help them and guide them to start managing their time. That if you are able to do this and listen, that this is the reward for you, because that's how a lot of teenagers think. What is the reward? What am I going to get out of it? And then, it's not the punishment piece of it, because that's probably going to backfire.
Okay. Let's talk about bullying and social media.
Yeah. Huge problem.
Yeah.
I think that's, there's positives and negatives to social media. The positives being you have an open gateway to, potentially, increasing your ability to make friends with people. I mean, we have a lot of patients and kids that we work with that they're just really shy, and being online gives them an opportunity to kind of, open up to other people that maybe they normally wouldn't be comfortable doing that in person, but behind a screen, it's a little bit more comfortable for them. So there's definitely a place for it. Obviously, we don't want to completely vilify social media. I mean, we all use it. Like literally we're
on it right now.
And we're on it right now. Right. I mean, we're sending TikToks to each other all the time, all day long. But, it's kind of just being aware of what the dangers of it are. I would say probably one of the most being bullying. And I think I feel like I'm gonna back when I was a teenager, but I mean, it's the truth. But
you want to hear when I was a teenager.
Well, I'm 34, so I feel like I'll never forget when social media kind of really came onto the scene was right when I was in high school. So I went through adolescence with not really a whole lot of social media, and then started entering into the end of high school. At that time, Facebook, you needed a college email to log in.
Absolutely. And MySpace.
I remember, and I remember, well, I had MySpace in high school, but for Facebook, you had to have the college email. So I remember thinking when I got into college, great, now I can have a Facebook, right? And it was amazing because it connected me to my roommate in college who became my best friend. But there was so many layers that you had to kind of get past. I feel like at some point there wasn't as much access. The difference now is there's just unlimited access. You have YouTube, you have TikTok, you have, and all it takes is someone to take a picture or start a rumor, and they can plug that to as many forums as they possibly want to. And there's no hiding from it. That's the difference. When we were kids and you got made fun of, you could come home and you got to hide from it in some way, right? You could come home and talk to your mom and dad, or go hang out with your friends that were supportive of you, or your family. These poor kids are at home, and guess what they're doing? You know, I read a study, 9 hours a day, kids on average in the United States are online, and that doesn't include homework. Wow. 9 hours. So, you know, that 9 hours of time you have to be exposed to that, it's just it's nonstop access.
It doesn't even matter how old you are. That's traumatic.
No.
You know? I mean, that really is.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's just it's relentless. It's relentless.
And some of those sites, you know, these kids are going on them, and there's that direct contact of, well, you look like a boy, and you look like this, and you look like that, and they're taking that in. Like, do I really look like that? Am I overweight? Am I, you know, do I have that perception? Like, this is what people must think of me, even though it might have been a joke. It might have been just something that one group of teens was just joking around and they said these things, but sometimes that sticks with that person that received that comment on the other end. And it's not, you know, it's another level of bullying where now it's internalized, and now what do they do with that? Does that turn into anxiety? Does it turn into depression? Does it turn into an eating disorder? Does that turn into substance abuse? And, you know, that's happening. That's happening to the teenagers that are on these sites like Wiz and like Facebook, and, you know, others that are really kind of gearing towards having these communication outside that adults might not even know that they're doing.
I still haven't gotten past the dating site called Wiz.
I know.
That is, how is that even allowed? You know?
It shouldn't be, yeah.
I mean, or maybe is it the teens are using it, or do they have to say? You don't have to say I'm over 18 or anything.
I think you have to say you're over 16, but you can be verified and you can be unverified. So you can still have people on there that are unverified that can pose as whoever they want to pose as. And, you know, that opens the whole door up to trafficking and kidnapping. And like, we've seen it just in this area. We've seen what can happen when someone that age is exposed to something and they just don't have that ability to make a good decision because their brains aren't fully developed yet.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the out of control teenager that is angry, raging. So you address, I need you off your computer. And you even go to the point of shutting off the power, as you said people were doing, right? They were just unplugging everything.
Yeah.
And then you get a reaction, right? Because they're not happy. You know, what does a parent do at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I first, again, would try to figure out why. Like, why is my child going from 0 to 60 in that capacity where they're that angry or that emotional? Because oftentimes that is followed by guilt and sadness, and I'm a bad person and I shouldn't live anymore, and my parents hate me and I hate myself. It's like Hannah said, that whole negative loop of just everything is bad. And, you know, so it's first trying to figure out like what's going on. Do you know that your mood's like that? You know, is there a way that you can really take a step back and give yourself that time to think about the behavior that is coming out? And some kids will be honest and say, no, it happens so fast. I can't do anything about it. And I think that's a good red flag signal that extra help is probably needed to really try to tease it out. And we get teenagers coming in here all the time. They're like, I think I might have a mood disorder. I think I have this going on. And, you know, we tease that out. Are you using marijuana? Are you using substances that are altering the mood and having a substance induced mood change? Because that is a real thing. It's possible? Or like Hannah said, what underlying thing is going on? Are you not doing well in school? Are people, making fun of you at school? Are there other pressures that you can't handle and that's the outlet? That's where the energy is going to have that behavior.
So you recommend having a quiet conversation with your child. Should you have it right then? Should you give it 10? Should you give it 30?
Yeah,
What?
if people are raging, are you going to
Mhm.
have a conversation with them? Probably not.
Right,
They're not, it's gonna go
right.
in one ear and out the other. When they're
Mhm.
seeing red, when someone goes from 0 to 60 and is red zone,
Mhm.
sometimes they're like, "I don't even remember doing that." And that's true. Sometimes they really truly don't remember doing that. So, take a break. Have
Right,
like
because you've got a
oh,
frustrated parent, you're busy, million things to do,
yeah,
trying to control the child that they can't control. The child's raging. They've got 5 minutes
yeah,
to do what they need to do. So now you've got rage.
yeah.
That's not helping,
Yeah, it fuels the
right?
fire. It makes it worse. So, some people have a code
Mhm.
word. I know that sometimes you have these behaviors. It makes me
Mhm.
feel unsafe. It makes me feel unsafe for you. When we say, team, that means we're separated. You're going to your room. I'm going here. Let it cool down. And really, it's when that kind of that
Mhm.
guilty feeling maybe comes pretty quickly after. You don't need to feel guilty about this. What can we do to help you? Listen. Listen to what that child has to say. They should be doing the speaking and you should be doing the listening. And like you said, in a calm way that's supportive and respectful because you want to help and you can help that. We've dealt with a lot of scenarios like that and have seen it go from that scenario to I just go to my room. I just take a break. I don't even deal with that situation anymore, which is amazing to hear. It puts the family back together into a unit that is able to communicate with one another.
Yeah. And no, I think, back when I was young, it was just, you know, you do what I say, and
Yeah.
it didn't matter. Like no one inquired,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even really, you know. So I think this sounds lovely and important,
Yeah.
to really try and understand what's going on. But I just think I would imagine that parents get extremely frustrated, and
Yeah.
they just it seems, when I'm listening to you right now, it just seems like common sense. But I think when you're in it, you're so frustrated and upset. You just don't. You're desperate for help to even know how to maneuver, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like to Brianne's, I think just thinking of like what Brianne is saying too, and also to your point, obviously these are all on an individual basis, right? Like
Of
we
course.
could be talking about this being the first time, we could be talking about this being a kid where this happens every single time you ask your child to pick something up, or and I really just I like Brianne said, it just keeps it has to come back to why I'm reminded of a patient that I've been taking care of, and she's a little kid, and that's what the parents were seeing, these explosive episodes. And this is a sweet, sweet, sweet little girl. And it turned out that it was just like untreated ADHD. She was so overstimulated that when she was being asked to do something as simple as picking up something or picking up her room, it was like that was the one thing that was just like throwing her over the edge. And it was manifesting as anger, was manifesting as irritability. And like her parents literally are like, she's a different child. This is a different kid. And so you really, you want to take the time to figure that out, because they got stuck right in that feedback loop. I'm a bad kid. I don't know what I'm doing. Mom and dad like this sibling more than they like me. It's just, there's almost always a reason. And also sometimes there are situations that call for boundaries as well. Right. And,
Well, and
that's
both
not
and
right.
both. regardless
Right.
of, ADHD is not a pass.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And I think like we've talked about it, I think on our talks before, of not even just in these situations, but any situation, what's important is how you approach that discussion. We've talked about using like I versus you language. Listen, honey, like when you behave that way, this is how it makes me feel. You're allowed to speak to your feelings as a parent as well, because I think, you're teaching a mutual respect. Like, I'm going to respect how you feel and what you have for input in this situation, but there has to be that return of respect as well. And I think if you go about addressing it in that way, you're more likely to have that more like respectful conversation.
So let's dive a little deeper into ADHD, because I feel like more people have it than they even realize, right? And there are different levels, and it can cause a lot of behavioral issues in young people and adults. Can you what are some things that you should look for in your child that make you test for that?
Yeah. Well, as Hannah said, I think that emotional lability, that 0 to 60, that impulsivity, that is so much of what we see with ADHD. And people don't put those two together. It's people just think, oh, I can't sit still or I can't do my work. And that behavior piece, that part of ADHD is probably the most disruptive to the parent and to the child. And that is something that if you do the neuropsychiatric testing, we can tease that out as what that diagnosis is, because their brain's firing in all these different directions. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with ADHD too. Can I do this right? I have all these thoughts. How do I, like, the brain is just goes on and on and on and on and on. It doesn't shut down. And, it's just to sit and read a
I know.
second. Like, I just can't even like do anything, because it's rapid fire all day long. And, so inattention, these behavioral changes, anxiety, because they really are not sure that they're not going to get called out in the classroom because they're misbehaving. And, and like you said, you can't give the pass, but you can identify it and you can put resources in place to help at that level, especially within the high school or the junior high, for extra time for tests and being able to get up and sit on a knee, going to the bathroom, having that just that literal hall pass to be able to take a break if they need to, so that these other things don't develop. But ADHD is a big one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how many people have it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to talk about that. Now we're going to move on to eating disorders, right? We were going to talk about some of those things that are going on with kids and what's causing those. Hannah, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I think it kind of is going to filter back to the social media discussion a little bit. Obviously, teenage years are every single one of us that's talking tonight and watching or who will be watching is going to say that when we were teenagers, the number one thing that we were most concerned about was fitting in. That's like the number one most important thing. I just want to be like everybody else. And there is, I think the issue of comparison probably turns out to be like one of the biggest issues when you see kids with this age group. In addition to that, you have hormones. People's bodies start changing, right? Sometimes in ways that people don't like. And we're fed a lot of something that I think is interesting to bring up is just this diet culture society that we very much so live in. It's always, you can do this fad diet or this fad diet or this and this, and these are being impressed on these like little impressionable brains. And so, I think it kind of starts with what goes on at home and teaching kids how to have a healthy relationship with food and a healthy relationship with their bodies, and an understanding that a foundation of an understanding of like our bodies change. It's part of life. They will change as you get older in many ways. And we have to focus on, instead of necessarily looks, on healthy behaviors, right? Because if we can teach kids healthy behaviors, we can prevent some of that fallout. That's what I see a lot of with teenagers. And honestly, I see a lot of it with people my age and older, that were experiencing negative things as a teenager, and now it's gone on to influence them in adulthood. And it's the same thing every time. Most of the time, it's a doctor told them they were fat, someone made fun of them for being fat, a parent was telling them.
I'm going to tell you to this day, when I'm so sorry, that's my ADHD.
But no, you know why you're going like this, because you can resonate.
I'm sitting here like, Veronica, don't do it. Don't do it.
No, please. No, I want to know what you have to say.
No, I have to say this. There have been times where I didn't want to go to the doctor because I knew I was going to be weighed in.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh no, I'm fluffy right now. I'm gonna wait and like reschedule. Like to see, like, how dumb is that? I'm a grown woman.
Yes, but
that is in my head, because I can't even tell you how many times I would look and like all my whole life, like, look at the chart. And we got to make sure I'm in the chart range or whatever. You know, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
And there are so
all right. Go ahead.
That affect health, and weight is one tiny facet of that equation. And I just, it's something I'm really, really passionate about. Brianne knows there's a movement out there called Health at Every Size. And basically the idea is that you can achieve health regardless of body size, right? You don't have to be a size 0 to be healthy, because Brianne and I have seen it. And most of us know someone who's a size 0 and eats McDonald's every day. And guess what? If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But, you know, it's about coming back and focusing again on the behaviors. Teaching your child how to nourish their body with things that feel good. If you want to have a cookie, have a cookie. But guess what? You know, if you have a cookie every day for every meal, you're probably not going to feel that great. I mean, you know, and eventually that will lead you back to being like, you know what, I could really go for a salad right now. And it's something, you know, so it comes back to that. I think being very aware of how you talk to your kids and how other people are talking to your children about the discussion of weight, and being mindful and intuitively feeding their body with things that are good for them. And that can mean many different things. You know, I've had people like friends that I have that have gone as far to actually call the pediatrician. And I think this is something that's really important to remember. We work for you. So don't, and I mean me as Brianne, myself as healthcare providers, we work for you guys as the patient. Okay. You run the show. We offer recommendations, but we are working for you. So you have every right to preface a visit with a conversation of, and I've had a lot of my friends who are parents do this, of calling ahead to the doctor and saying, I just want you to know certain things are off the table for discussion. I would like to be the person to discuss those things with my child. If you are going to discuss those things, please make sure that it's talked about in a way that's not shameful, because I really hate
to this happens. This is happening that you're here. No, it's important.
Probably one of the primary reasons people start eating disorders also come from trauma, of course. Like I said, bullying,
lack of control, lack of control,
right? Which could come from trauma. Exactly.
Yeah.
But every single person, every one of us can remember a time in our lives when someone told us we were fat, and you're never going to forget it ever, because it hurts people's feelings. So I think it goes back to like teaching kids how to be kind to one another, accepting of different ways that people look, teaching everyone that we all have different bodies. All of those bodies, sizes, shapes are valid. And if you notice things you want to keep an eye out with kids this age are, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old should not be going on a crash diet. We should be teaching kids how to add healthy and nourishing foods into their diet versus restricting them. Like I said, coming back to teaching that healthy relationship with food is really important, because that's what's going to lead to problems later. I don't know, Brianne, if you have anything else that you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a psychiatric and adult nurse practitioner, it's probably one of the scariest diagnoses to come across, because like you said, the control piece can get so out of hand, and especially right now with fillers, Botox, Ozempic, all those drugs that are being utilized, the images, the filters, and I think it's sometimes really easy for that teenager to hide what they're doing until you're at a place where, well, hey, why has there been such rapid loss from your last doctor's appointment? Why are you so fixated on what size you are and what gene size you are currently? It's by the time they're kind of voicing some of these things, they probably already have been binging or purging and having, these behaviors that are potentially already ingrained. If it's been that 6 to 8 weeks where these behaviors are now more set in stone, it's now trying to figure out how do I deal with this? And it's been scary. We've had some clients that have been diabetics that restrict their insulin, that restrict their food, and it gets really, really to a point where it can turn into a very medically dangerous situation.
Yeah. And, to your point earlier too, these images on social media and filters, also the reels are all like, your exercise here to lose your belly, do this to build your butt bigger, do this. It's like to try to have that perfect body. And they're, it's just constantly in front of you with TikTok and,
and it's always changing.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, it was the rail thin supermodel. And then, now we're going through, well, you need to be curvaceous and your waist needs to be tiny and your breasts need to be big and your butt needs to be huge. And it's these like impossible beauty standards, and your brows need to be lifted and your lips need to be big. And, it's impossible. You can't even keep up with it. Honestly, I don't know what.
And just so you know, ladies or young ladies, once you start ripping out those brows, they don't grow back.
Yeah.
I just had to throw that out there.
Well, now you can get fake eyebrows and fake eyelashes.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's like you have no idea. Like I used to have, the cool eyebrows. Mine used to be wicked cool, but back then they weren't. Then in the 90s,
the thin eyebrows.
Then they had to. You had to make them really thin.
Yep.
But they don't grow back.
Yeah.
It's not the
they
same.
do not.
Don't do it.
Don't
do the trends.
Yeah, it's the message of like taking care of your body now.
Yeah.
Because you can't sometimes change these things later on, and that's what I have a teenage daughter and a teenage son. And, that's really the message I say is, take care of yourself now, because you don't get a second body. This is what you have to work with. Brush your teeth. Make sure, you are eating healthy foods, that you're exercising, and be as healthy as you can be, and be confident in whatever you have right now to work with. There's nothing more that you need other than to really focus on the healthiest version of you.
Yeah. Right. So we've talked HD, we've talked about eating disorders. Substance abuse.
Yeah,
that's
a big one.
Yeah.
Do you want to start on that one, Brianne?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing a lot of, what's probably most prevalent first line is the alcohol use. And what's really scary is the amount of drinking and driving that goes on. And so we often get the parents calling, my child got pulled over, my child got into an accident, my teenager is now facing potential court time. Can you write a letter to get him out of it? That's kind of what we're getting. And it's so hard. There's teenagers that are binge drinking. There are teenagers that really truly have significant alcohol misuse. And I
When do
think
you see that
because
starting?
yeah, and it's easy to, you can do it at night with your friends, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not so blatant, like you're high and you can see that. With the alcohol, you might really be able to cover it a little bit more, but parents are finding like alcohol in the car, in the trunk, under the bed mattress, spread throughout the room, empty bottles left around. And so I feel like that comes first before then the vaping and the nicotine use and the cannabis and maybe some more of the harder illicit drugs that are out there.
Mm. So what are what are some signs to look for there other than, the obvious ones that you just mentioned, but what would be something to pay attention to for a parent behavioral wise?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they come home and they're angry. They don't want to talk to you. They're running up to their room because they don't want you to have a conversation with them. And, and like I said, hiding things around the house or stealing is another big one, that the credit cards are being taken or jewelry is being pawned off, and, things that maybe you might not fully grasp at first. Did I forget to put the credit card there? Did I forget to do that? And it's signs like that, and then the behavior changes and avoidance, maybe a drop in the grades, maybe they're not wanting to hang out with their friends group, they want to hang out with new friends in a different town. And I think just a change in the baseline might be the first sign that something's going on.
Okay. What else what other issues do we want to cover here?
I do want to just briefly touch on to the vaping. I know people,
Okay.
I do think it's something that I'm hearing a lot more of with the teenagers is actually the vaping with the nicotine, and the nicotine causing a lot of irritability and anger with teenagers. They stop vaping and it's like a switch goes off, they have their kid back. Vaping's dangerous for a lot of reasons. I think, it is still very accessible. We know that we're trying to kind of figure out all these ways to counteract it. You have I heard these new sensors now in schools that can detect vape. Kids sneaking out of class, going to the bathroom to vape. And when I was in grad school, I had to do like a public health research project, and I did it on vaping because I was like, well, I don't really know much about this. And when I was growing up, it was more so cigarettes. That was kind of the big thing.
Yeah.
And all I can say is they're not kidding when they talk about how bad this stuff is for your lungs, and in addition to that, how addictive it is with vaping, because it's that automatic access. You don't have to step outside to light a cigarette. You can just pick up this little thing in your hand and hold it to your mouth and breathe it in. And kids don't even realize how much nicotine they're taking in. And we know that there's studies that show the negative effects that it can have on kids' brains, if you're vaping that much nicotine.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's even worse for you than smoking a cigarette. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it depends. I
don't know anything about vaping, so yeah.
The thing you have to be careful with vaping is that what they're finding is that the amount of nicotine that's being consumed is drastically higher with a vape because it's so easily accessible versus you have to light a cigarette. I mean, people are taking, multiple puffs every minute. I mean, you could literally take a puff every minute if you wanted to.
And when you smoke a cigarette, there's so much smoke that you can't possibly, you're not sucking it all in.
Well, and also,
I mean, maybe some people do. I don't know.
There's
but,
the mechanism in which how a vape converts into like that heating. It like heats up inside the vape and converts that into like the smoke is really bad for your lungs.
Wow.
It's really, really bad for your lungs.
Yeah.
And I know, there's probably some people watching this that are probably like, oh gosh, here we go. But, when we talk about like, these things are important to talk about, to Brianne's point of like, we have to talk to kids about this. They have to understand how dangerous it is, not just for physically their bodies, but like mentally, it's not healthy for them either.
No.
You're feeding this dopamine pathway in the front of your brain at a very young age. This part of our brains is crucial when it comes to reward systems and mood regulation. And you're really kind of dysregulating and messing things up when you're constantly hitting this part of the brain with nicotine, like all the time. It can be dangerous when you're at that age.
And one thing too is if you're on ADHD medication or you're on medication for anxiety or depression, smoking this plant-based cigarettes, marijuana, and to some extent as well, the vaping is going to decrease the amount of medication that you're getting. So you effectively can be putting yourself at risk for not getting the amount of medication that you should be getting, which could worsen your depression, worsen your anxiety, worsen your ADHD, which we don't think about that piece either, but that's a real thing, that nicotine can take whatever medication you're on, and we all have different metabolism, and reduce that. So if you're someone who's a really fast metabolizer and you're breaking things down and you have that level on top of it, who knows how much less medication that actually you're taking. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And with the vaping, like you can see if you did a chest x-ray for someone who's a vapor versus someone who's a cigarette smoker, you can see specific changes from the vaping. Again, this is your body, your one body. Do you really want to put yourself in that situation? Because in addition to those mental health concerns, that's what we're seeing is a lot of pulmonary respiratory issues, young people getting diagnosed with bronchitis and COPD in their 30s, which, do you want to be oxygen dependent by the time you're 40? No, no, it's not a good way to live. It's safety. It's trying to promote that safety with the teenager who's like, whatever, I don't care what you're saying, I'm going to do it.
Well, and education, right? Like one thing that we've talked about this before, and I just want to drive this home, is I think we've briefly talked about like epigenetics, right? Which is this idea that we all have genes, every single one of us. We could have a schizophrenia gene, you could have a bipolar gene, a depression gene, whatever. There are the belief, especially now, in the big movement with psychiatry, is that there are ways that these genes can be turned on. You might have genes that just never express themselves, right? We could have bipolar genes that never turn on for a number of reasons. But what Brianne and I have seen this is not us making it up. We've seen kids literally become so paranoid from marijuana, psychedelic drugs. We've seen kids like that anger, these mood changes. If your child is experiencing that significant of a mood change with substances, you have to be very careful that you are not turning something on in the body, because we have seen kids smoke marijuana, have a psychotic break, and sometimes that doesn't shut off.
Wow.
And the more you test that gene, it's like it's like trying to light a match. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, let me just keep, like, or trying to turn on the stove, right? You're
Right,
click, click, click. Eventually it's going to turn on and you might not be able to turn it off.
No.
And so that's the kind of discussions you have to have with your kids. It's not just, obviously these things are physically bad for you, but look at how this is making you feel. And this might not go away if you keep doing this. It's having, like, there's some serious repercussions from the mental health perspective that we see all the time.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. So we've talked about a lot of stuff tonight. Now, what information should we give parents? What should they do at this point?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to reach out to get help.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health is everybody's problem, and it's we all experience. It is just something that doesn't need to have the stigma around it. The
Right.
sooner you get help, the easier that it is. If we let these problems go on for a year, 2 years, now that teenager is at jeopardy of not graduating. That teenager is now at jeopardy of maybe failing out of college, or they don't want to go. The sooner you address it, the sooner that help can be there. And help can come in all forms: therapy without any type of medications, acupuncture, massage, really trying to get to the root of the issue. As Hannah said, in terms of that genetics, like, we do testing to see how you do respond to medications at our office. So you're not blindly taking medications if that's the route that you need to go on. And there are a lot of resources available. We'll post some towards the end. But I think that's my key advice is don't wait to get help. If you notice something's going on, reach out, get to the bottom of it, figure out what's going on, and it will make your life better too. You don't have to deal with these behaviors and actions and walking on eggshells. We can try to do something about it and have that success within the family.
Yeah, and you guys are going to post resources in the comments section of VTalks podcast, and so we'll make sure that that's there if a parent needs anyone. If you're local here in the South Coast, you can certainly see Hannah and Brianne at Seahorse Behavioral. And I think you still have some openings over there. I don't know. You guys are busy.
Yeah.
You are busy ladies, but I know that you have a great team over there, and you have a great referral system if in fact you can't see anyone right away.
Yeah.
Because that was something else that we talked about. It's really difficult. That's why you opened up a second office, right?
Yeah. And we're so open to trying to help get those resources too. If we're not able to help, if it's a specific issue that really is, something that needs a higher level of care or certain expertise, like eating disorders. And, we try to go above and beyond, even if you aren't a client of ours, to help you to get the right care, which, I think we have someone who's a live person answering our phone if you call to get that help, which is huge. It's huge that someone actually will call you back. Someone actually will take the time to put you in the direction that you need to go in if that's what's necessary. So it's prevalent. There's just such a need, and there are resources. It just might take a little time if that's with just the demand that's there right now.
Well, you guys,
discussion.
Yeah,
discussion. This is why we're doing this. Talk about it. It's so important. Like, normalize this type of problem, right? Because we all have it. That's the most important thing, is destigmatize this type of topic.
And we love it. Sometimes we'll have some of our teenagers who are afraid to come in, and they'll come in with hats, and they'll come and, once they're this is helping me. I'm feeling better. They're coming by themselves. They're like calling to make appointments on their
Yeah, they're probably
own.
like, forget mom or
Forget,
dad. Like
this is my
I'm going
appointment.
I'm going to
Yep.
Seahorse to see my
Yeah, I have an
girls.
8-year-old who comes in and he's like, I don't need my mom to come in
Oh
here.
yeah. Yeah.
To
I
see
love it.
that is like, that's why we do what we do, because we can remember those kids at that time where they were struggling and they weren't getting out of bed and they weren't showering and they weren't eating. And, to have that to this independent teenager coming in being like, I wish I could see you 3 times a week. And this is what I'm doing. And, I don't care about anything other than like my own happiness and these 4 walls. And, like we just sit here and it's just like, we just love that,
Yeah. They're
love
hilarious.
to see what could have been the other direction. Like you were on your way to go to jail is what was happening. You were on your way to killing yourself or somebody else because of the behaviors that you were doing. I don't need any of that stuff anymore. Like I got this. I don't need vaping and smoking and I don't need any of that. So put me in that direction that these are my new goals and you've helped me to get to that place.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is
rewarding.
amazing. Wow. I love these stories. And I love the 2 of you. It's a whole lot of fun to go to dinner with these guys.
Say the same about you.
Oh boy. It's so much fun.
We have a good time.
So we have on our 3-part series. So next month is part 3. That's failure to launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we let's talk about that real fast. What can people expect? What's that? What are we talking about there? I know there are a lot
Talking
of
about how to kick your kids out of your house.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Out.
Get out. No. We're talking about that next transition, that next life phase, which I think more of us are running into because of the way of the world right now. It's expensive out there, right? So there's more kids that are moving, living at home, right? And young adults living at home, which nothing wrong with that. Been there, done that. But just kind of, and also, and I think getting closer to that college age time. Gosh, you think this is bad? Like being a teenager sometimes? Try asking an 18-year-old, like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life for like the next 60 years? It's like, whoa, it's a little heavy. So it'll be a lot of, trying to talk about how to guide, those young adults. It's the young adult phase, trying to guide them through really starting their journey into adulthood and giving them the tools that they need to be successful, whatever that looks like. And I'm excited to talk about it because I love those people too.
I was looking at my barn swallows. I have the barn swallows come back every year, and there's like two nests that, and I was watching the last little set of 3 launching out of the nest. So it was kind of ironic, right?
You're
I'm like
that's what we and
call mom's them, like,
mama
you can
birds
tell,
and baby birds.
You can tell the mom's like,
get the heck out.
Go.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So
hilarious.
Like really, really cute. And then of course there's George the barn cat going, yeah, come over this way. He's sitting up on his bird.
See, that's what we have to do. We got to teach them the dangers of the barn cats.
Yeah.
There's a barn cat around every corner.
Credit card companies at college are the barn cats pulling you in and you're getting in debt.
I haven't worked out my arms enough, my wings enough. Yeah. Well, we laugh, but no, it's very serious. We're making a joke, but this is very, very serious. And I'm glad we are touching upon that next month. So we're coming up on the hour, and you guys need to go out and continue to save the world. And I need to let my dogs out.
Love it.
Very good to see
dogs. No failure to launch there.
Exactly. But we can put them in their pen when they're not behaving, and not have to worry about that. All right, ladies. Lovely to see you. And
Bye, everyone.
we'll chat soon, okay?
Thank
good.
you.
All right,
Bye.
guys. All
Bye.
right. I got to take you out one by one. Goodbye, sweetheart.
Bye.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to part 2 of our 3-part series, Raising Good Humans. I hope you got some really good information from these ladies. They are going to go back and put some resources in the comment section, specifically on the VTalks podcast page. If you would like to either reach out to them or reach out to their resources, we just want to normalize mental health and make you all comfortable. We're all a little broken. We're doing the best we can. And I hope this podcast helped you. Next week, we are going to be with Dr. Michael Wild, our functional medicine doctor. And I don't even know what the topic is. I'm going to have to get with him. Michael, if you're out there, we need to get together so we can figure this out. But I'm sure it will be interesting. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. All right. Have a good night. Bye-bye.